You are listening to Faithless Brewing, a Magic the Gathering podcast for the Spike Road. Each week we design new decks for tournament play. We put our creations to the test and share our findings on the air. Modern has a new combo menace, and her name is Rosie Cotton of South Lane? Mord and Mana Symbol are joining forces to find the most worthy companions for the bravest little hobbits in all the land. This is part 1 of our Brewer's Guide to Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show.
And welcome to Faithless Brewing. Tonight, our beautiful CEO, or the evil overlord of our future world, as you might know it in a few days by the time this is released, Cavedan, is on a trip. We don't know where, we don't know why. He says it's something about his family. We know it's something about nefarious scheming and world overtaking, but that's not what we're here to discuss. So, however, I'm here with the beautiful, the most Canadian of our members, Zach Reel, better known as Mana Symbol Online. How are you doing, Zach? Been a while, buddy.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be back with you, Emmy, my friend. You're one of my favorite people in the Magic Sphere. For those who don't remember the start of our illustrious career together, we did a 3.5 hour of episode of Serum Visions once upon a time, talking about endless deck lists that happened right after the giant Scorched Earth banning in Modern that took out Uro and Field of the Dead and Mystic Sanctuary and all that nonsense. And it's been a pleasure to share with you with the world and see what a wonderful steward of Faithless Brewing you've been while I've been gone.
Someone had to take the banner. I didn't take your position. We got in here together and we're going to stick to the end. And now you're back. So Danny's gone. We can just get unhinged together.
Exactly. Even more importantly, Dan's not here, and he always says when he has to listen to these episodes, he's like, "Oh no, what are they gonna do?" It's like leaving the teenagers at home and with like pizza money and being like, "Okay, I know something's gonna happen. Just don't burn down the house." I guess that's the only thing I can ask for.
I mean, he knows it's gonna be fine. He's just afraid of how long the content could be.
Yeah, that's the number one concern, is he's usually just worried about the length. But you know what? We'll open it up to our wonderful listeners, and especially the wonderful members of our Discord, to comment, give us some feedback on this episode. Do you like it when we go long? If so, you and I can go as long as you like. On the contrary, do some people like it when we stick closer to the 1 hour per episode format? Are you really a stickler about that? Let us know. And the easiest way to do that is on the Discord, or of course on any of our social media. We're on Twitter. But in order to join the Discord, you can of course join the Patreon and send some money to Faithless Brewing, support everything that we do here. Sometimes we need new equipment. We do have some new patrons to thank for joining up, I believe. Is that right, Mord?
Yeah, we have 2 new beautiful patrons, Toffer W and Brendan A. Thanks so much for supporting the Faithless Brewing crew. Our new microphones and sometimes new setup, really thank you for that. Every single patron just helps us keep going and delivering new episodes. And at least today, some unhingedness about a new set.
Yeah, if Topher is who I think you are, that's one of the people I was rooming with in Vegas. A very cool guy, so hi, Topher. And if you're not that Topher, you're a different Topher, but you're probably just as cool.
But also, hi, Topher.
Right, also, hi, Topher. Regardless, what are we here to talk about? We're here to talk about a whole bunch of Lord of the Rings spoilers. We just got a glut of them over the last little chunk, and that's going to be very exciting to start going through these cards and seeing what is worth playing with. I know we had a small number from a few months back, and we had also very little information on them. We didn't know what being tempted by the ring was, so we're going to get into all of that.
All the details. Yeah.
So one of the things is this full set is coming out in just a couple weeks now, right?
30 days. Sorry, 20 days.
20 days.
In 20 days, it releases on MTGO. We're going to start seeing more spoilers in around a week. We are recording this on the beginning of June, ending of May. In a few days, spoilers are going to start heavily. We just got like the first wave, like before spoiler starts, the video, the introduction and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But we are going to see, starting next week, we're going to see a lot of spoilers. and we just have to get ready. This is a big set, like 288 cards, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it's definitely a like full-sized set. But let me tell you one thing it isn't. This is not Modern Horizons 3. I think that's pretty clear from the cards we've seen so far. I just remember that there were some sort of murmurs from people that in terms of the pace at which they had been releasing Modern Horizons sets, that this actually slotted into a similar spot where one would have predicted Modern Horizons 3. And some people were thinking that the power level of this set might be up there. And so we might have to be facing a lot of, turn one golems and, evoking Gandalfs to stop, your opponent's solitudes or whatever. And now that we have a good look at this set, I think we can pretty clearly say this is not that.
This is not that, but at least for what I have seen, it seems a bit stronger than an usual standard set, at least for some of the cards I'm seeing, which is enough to make me happy. Like, some modern acquisitions without anything being broken is exactly what I'm looking for in every set.
Right, and it should be because it's not being part of Pioneer even. So they really kind of set the bar in a spot where it's like, okay, we're doing something new that we've never done before. We're going to make it legal in Modern, but not in Pioneer. And I would expect to see more of these kind of releases in the future, with the specific reason being that Legacy is a very difficult market to design and print new cards to include functionality for Legacy. It is the only format that gets Commander cards in it, and those sometimes have semi-disastrous results. And I think
Initiative.
Yeah, and in this case, by having more of an idea that, okay, this isn't a multiplayer focused set, but we are going to remember that we're putting it in a constructed format, then they'll have a little bit more of a way to try to dial in how they're designing it. And it makes sense to go, okay, this is going in Modern, but it's not going in Pioneer. Like, that is a very distinct power level that they can design other sets for, much like Modern Horizons.
Yeah, I think they went through that idea, but weren't hoping most cards to stick. We're seeing for the first time in a few, at least month, a 2-mana 2/2 vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something I was at least missing.
Yeah.
But before we get a lot deeper into Lord of the Rings, it's worth noting a few hours ago, maintenance ended on NTGO, and we've actually got two-factor authentication going.
Yeah.
Just wanted to thank Daybreak on that. Finally, we have two-factor authentication.
Yeah, it's really funny. This was always a sticking point that Jeff Hoagland would rail against back in the day. This was like 4 or 5 years ago, that it was like, how do we not have two-factor identification in a game where your collection can be worth, some people have collections that are worth thousands of dollars. And even if it's not, for some people, the hundreds of dollars that your collection is worth, that's a lot. It's a big deal to some people. So I just want to thank Daybreak Games for most of the stuff they've done since they've taken over, and especially this one. Thanks for pointing that out, Mort. That's a big deal.
And yeah, with that being said, there's not much to talk regarding Magic besides Lord of the Rings.
I mean, we got a lot of Pioneer stuff coming up, but we'll touch on that later.
Yeah.
In other episodes. We have a returning mechanic, Amass. In this case, it got a new word attached to it. Now it's Amass Orcs. So the example I pulled from one of the cards later on, it says Amass Orcs 2. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on an army you control. Also, it's an orc. If you don't control an army, create a 0/0 black orc army creature token first. So what this suggests is that this syncs up with the previous printing of Amass in such a way that if you have a zombie army and then you play one of the new Amass cards, it's going to gain the size that you'd expect it to, and then also become an orc. So you'll have now an orc zombie army, an amalgamated army. So the armies have unionized.
Zombie orc army.
Yeah, well, it's just part orc and part zombie, right? It's like how the creature type on, what is it, Galta and Maverin is dinosaur vampire. It's not a dinosaur vampire, it's a dinosaur and a vampire.
Exactly.
This is orcs and zombies.
A zombie orc army. The best sort of army.
I find Amass to be a really underwhelming mechanic, but it's a fine thing for limited. I don't think any of these cards will make any particular constructed impact whatsoever.
I think there is one that's gonna be just completely insane. But before we miss Amass, I'm just gonna say Amass in Spanish is traduced as enrolar, which is like recruiting, but also
recruit. Yeah.
but also it sounds really like an English way of saying enrochar algo, which is like roll down.
Or
It went down a grain of just joint and marijuana shokes extremely fast. Like people cannot say amas. We don't say enrolar like at all. The same with amas.
Roll it up. Yeah. I get it. That's funny.
Or like amas, which is related to amasar, which is what you do to a dough.
That's funny.
And which it just never works. Like amas just failed as a translation completely.
Localization is always. I think enlist would have been good, but I feel like enlist is already a mechanic. Anyway,
I think it is somehow. But yeah, so disregarding Amas and its terrible translating, we start with a land cycle that I think just missed the mark in... I think there's one that's playable.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to link this one, and I forgot to put the picture
White
in here.
one?
I was going to put in the black one, Barad-dur.
Oh, yeah, that was the two I enjoyed. Barad-dur, I think, has a slot, like, bought into coffers.
Yeah, exactly. So, for everyone who hasn't seen these, Barad-dur is a legendary land. It has the same text as this whole cycle, which is it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary creature. I don't imagine that the deck playing this would have too many legendary creatures.
Nope.
It taps to add a black, but here's the ability that we're interested in: XX black tap amass orcs X. Activate only if a creature died this turn. You can activate this as an instant. And if you're playing the Coffers deck in Modern, you could have a lot of mana lying around. So you just go, here, I'm going to kill one of your creatures on your turn. And then at the end of that turn, I'm going to tap my Coffers and make like a 7/7. Like, it's not, I'm not saying this is good. I'm not saying it's something you will do. But I'm saying it's a fairly powerful card. And I'm shocked that it doesn't have a sorcery speed restriction.
Yeah, I agree.
And then you threw on here, Minas Tirith.
Minas Tirith is, I think, also a good one, especially because a lot of white decks are going to play enough legendary creatures for this to maybe come in untapped. Like, I think this is one of the few that can actually consider the restriction and consider it might enter untapped.
Yeah.
And pay 2 mana to draw a card by attacking with 2 creatures is, I think, super common in mono white decks. Especially ones that will have access to Ardelin, which is a legendary, which generates 2 attackers and makes this untapped.
Yeah, it's certainly a card that, like,
could see play.
I think white creature decks are the most likely to have this come in untapped. Not on turn 1 or 2 or anything like that, but like, there's your 3rd or 4th land, whatever. And then the activation cost is just, it's cheap, right? And it fits with what you're doing anyway. So it's a minor utility land that I think will be fine. Rivendell looks like pretty garbage. It's Castle Ardenvale with more steps. And I don't think we have the full cycle yet, so we'll have to see what red and green have to offer us.
No, we have everything. Green, we don't have green, but we have red, which I was considering just because it's... So, Mines of Moria, give me a second, ambulance.
Yeah.
Downside of living on the first floor,
Here, I can read the Mines of Moria. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary creature. Taps for red. 3 in red. Exile 3 cards from your graveyard. Create 2 treasure tokens. Actually, that's really good too. I hadn't seen this one.
Instant speed making 2 treasure tokens?
Yeah.
Isn't terrible. It's a piece of material you can interact with.
No, actually, this is more... Again, this is more generous than I expect. So, well done on that one.
I think that not having just as a sorcery clause is what's making them... It's just something they get because of we're not in Pioneer,
I guess so, or Standard, but either way, I'm happy to see it. So
I agree.
Yeah, maybe the green one will be playable. Time will tell.
Time will tell. Yeah. So getting away from the lands, we like them, we don't love them. We have many partings. A card I think I'm in love with.
Okay, so we've got a green sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card. Reveal it. Put it into your hand, and then shuffle, create a food token. So I believe this is Dan wrote this here, Attune with Aether Vibes. Someone asked if this is the second coming of Astrolabe. Yeah, it certainly has some similarities to both those things. Attune with Aether a little bit more so. Creating a food token at this cheap a value is nice for anyone that has artifact or food synergies. So if you were playing maybe an Asmo deck that wanted to go slightly bigger So you wanted to have something like this. I think Traverse the Ulvenwald is going to be in most cases better, but yeah, I could see this having some use at some point.
So I remember a few weeks ago, I was actually a few months ago, I was talking about what's missing for Academy Manufacturer and that deck to be playable in Modern, because it's like a tier 15. And I said, we need stuff to make food for cheap. Because it's the worst. You will never gonna get stuff that makes either treasures or clues for really cheap, because that's a good piece of material. But food sucks.
Yeah, food is kind of the cheapest one, right?
Maybe enough for cards like this to start appearing. Like I love this as a 1 for 2 of in an Academy Manufacturer deck. A basic land that also nets you a clue if you have a Manufacturer, or if you have a Chatterfang, a 1/1. That starts to speed up incrementally.
Yeah. Okay. That's definitely something worth taking a look at when we start building those kind of decks again.
So,
I included this next one. Yeah.
Oh, I love the next one.
Yeah. People have talked about it. I was very skeptical of it, but please take us through the Delighted Halfling.
So, Delighted Halfling. 1 green mana for a Halfling citizen, a 1 mana 1/2 that has. You can tap it for colorless, or you can add 1 mana of any color and spend it only to cast a legendary spell, and it can be countered. So it's a Cavern of Souls for legendary spells. I think it's super important. This isn't talking about legendary creatures, but legendary spells.
Big fan of that.
Huge in a difference of how playable this is. This allows turn 2 Teferi uncontrollable, and that's a big deal.
Okay, and the stat line of 1/2, we obviously know for Modern is very important, so you just don't get pinged down by Wrenn and 6.
I think this might be the best mana just on the back of it being a 1/2.
And it asks for colorless in case you want to do some kind of Eldrazi nonsense.
I would love to play. So, the first deck that came into my mind when I watched this is something I know likely isn't good, but remember Spike was playing an Eldrazi deck a while ago, like mono green Eldrazi?
Yep.
So, this allows you to have 8 mana dorks that tap for colorless, while also allowing you to play a turn 3 Karn, the 4 mana Karn uncontrollable.
Yep.
And that's at least something to look into.
Yep. Definitely a consideration. This is the kind of card we're looking for, right? It's on rate with other cards of the format, but it has unique appeal.
Exactly. So being on rate, maybe a slightly above, is exactly what I'm looking for in a card on this sort of set. Like, even if we get like 8-9 cards like this that Chassis Modern play, I would be super happy.
Yeah, and that I would be very, very satisfied, especially if the card is Delighted Halfling. Like that could just be in AFR or any other set. It's not specifically Lord of the Ringsy.
I'm gonna propose when we get to one of the 2 drops that exact theory that's on purpose.
Oh, I think so too. Okay,
we can discuss that now then. I think they're gonna make the powerful cards non-legendary ones mostly, or at least not just straight up value ones, or not the most common names, to avoid people going like, oh yes, turn 3 Gandalf.
Yeah, well, and more importantly, they can then be reprinted in non-Lord of the Rings sets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they can just forget about it. So next we have 2 cards that are here just because of one of their abilities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're both commons. They both cost 6. It's very reminiscent of the set Scourge, where this mechanic was introduced. So you have the Generous Ent and the Oliphaunt. Both of these are draft commons, and I mean that in
6 mana, big chunky creatures, reach 5/7 and trample 6/4 with vanilla text alongside it.
But the Ent has forest cycling and the Oliphaunt has mountain cycling, and in each case it's a single generic mana. So this is the cheapest forest cycling and the cheapest mountain cycling that have ever been printed.
And it's not even basic cycling.
Correct. So you can get a fetch land or a triome. So not a fetch land, a shock land or a triome. So it's neat. Once upon a time, even in standard, in fact, in that standard, when it was Onslaught Mirrodin, there was a 8-land Belcher deck. And the key to that deck was to use land cycling cards to get all the lands out of your deck and then Belcher your opponent. So you did play lands because you had to, because that was the only way to make mana. But once you had the minimum number of lands, what you did is you used land cycling cards to get all the lands out of your deck, and then you Belchered them. So it's like an honest Belcher deck, let's say.
The first Belcher.
Yeah, it was basically. I don't know if these will be actually played or that useful, but it's a good tool to know that you now have access to. Next up, we have a really, really cute design.
Long list of the Ents.
Yes, it is. This is a saga with 6 chapters. for a single green mana, and it has a kind of complicated and very low impact ability. So every single turn, you're going to get the same trigger. Note a creature type that hasn't been noted for long list of the Ents. When you cast your next creature spell of that type this turn, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So this only works once per turn. You choose a single creature type, and it is one that has not been named yet by this card. It's not, this is just really cute.
I think it's super cute. I don't think it's particularly playable. Like, the first thing I did when I saw this was I went to the Hard and Scales deck and I started looking at the creature types, because you could go turn 1 These, turn 2 name Insect, play a Savage, turn 3 name Construct, play a Kangaroo Walker that only paying 2 mana is a 2/2. Then you can name Beast. But sadly, most of the creatures in the deck are actually just constructs.
Yeah. Except for Arcbound Ravager.
Yeah, Ravager is a Beast and Savage is an Insect.
Yeah, but you're right. It's like an anti-tribal card. I guess the other deck that you could use this in for some reason would be like Infect. So if you wanted to cast this on one, and then for the next couple turns, all the hierarchs that you play are different creature types. So you could name human for ignoble, or for noble hierarch, goblin for ignoble hierarch. You can name Phyrexian for any of the infect creatures, but I think almost all the playable ones are different creature types too. So I think every single creature in the infect deck, you could, if you're careful about how you choose the creature types, there is not a single overlap.
I mean, if you're just looking for straight up counters, you play this in a Magda deck as a way to make all your wild ones 2/2s.
Yeah. But again, only one per turn. And that's the thing is, like, in Modern, I don't think you're going to get a lot of decks that are like a creature focused deck that's playing cheap creatures that's like, I only want to play one per turn. Like, that's just not going to happen.
This is one of the cards that make me happy for the flavor of the set, because I can picture 3 beers just reading, oh yes, Hungerback Walker.
Yes, we were waiting for you.
Oh, the second Ent. I met him while ago.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, where might the insect? And then just going step by step. This is one of those cards that just reminds me of having enough lore of the Lord of the Rings to make me happy.
Over my vacation to Brazil, that was during the winter, I watched all the Lord of the Rings movies again, and I either forgot or I'd never seen the cut where Treebird reads some poems.
It's extended edition. A lot of people have never seen extended edition because it's a lot slower. Like, you have to love Lord of the Rings to love extended edition.
The thing is, which I did, but the thing is, I've seen the director's cut, and I think the extended edition is even longer than the director's cut, and I just hadn't realized that there was an even longer one. Like, I'd already seen the long one, and it's like, no, there's more.
So the director's cut was what came after the extended edition, because it was just insanely long. So it was like a middle point. You can have a bit more, but not that much more.
Right. It's like my favorite cut of Watchmen is that one, essentially, because there's an extra plot line that gets added that's not useful in any way to the full version. Anyway, moving on to another cheap token creator. We've got Shelob's Ambush, a single black mana for a combat trick. It's a target creature gets +1/+2 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. Create a food token.
This has to be one of the most stacked combat tricks we have ever seen, especially as a common.
Yeah, this thing is ridiculous. This really reminds me of there's a pirate themed one from Ixalan that is one of the greatest card names of all time that, of course, I can't remember right now. Hold on.
What is the one?
It's not Boondoggle, it's not Hornswoggle, it's
the non-bourgeois one?
It's like target creature gets +1/+1 and target creature gets -1/-1.
Oh.
No.
So the one I'm thinking about is Fungal Spawn, the one that gives you a 1/1 and gives a creature -1/-1. That's Dominaria.
No, that's Dominaria. That's Dominaria. Hold on, I'm finding this thing. Is it Skullduggery? There we go. Target creature gets +1/+1. Target creature gets -1/-1. It's just insane. It just leads to a double kill blowout in almost every situation. This one is just incredibly generous because your creature is almost definitely going to live, and even if it's not, their creature is definitely going to die.
+1/+2 is a lot. Like, you attack with a bunch of 1/1s, your opponent cannot even block with a 2/2 efficiently.
Right, but then also, even if your creature's a 1/1 and their creature's a 7/7, you just death touch
You trade and you get a food.
Yeah. And if you're on the defensive, it's even great. So this is an insane combat trick. Like, it's probably one of the more generous ones. And then no matter what happens, you get a food.
Yeah, I like this one. No, not even your creature has to kill something, not even anything. Just make a food.
Now, that said, in order to take advantage of it as a cheap way to generate the game object, you need to have a creature target. Which, so I don't really see this as ever being a constructed card, but...
No. I would see this in Pioneer or Standard, just never in Modern. That's, I think, why they're making this a common. I think this is going to be a great draft set. I think they're going to have some really good archetypes.
I can imagine a world in Pioneer where you have the like mono black or black red mid-range deck. If you ever needed an extra tool against like burn, then you could play this, but you don't need more tools against burn because your deck is already insane against those anyway. So anyway,
anything that for 1 mana makes a game object is something to always have in the back of your mind. Like, if one day I wake up and my creativity opponent goes stomping around many partings, I'm not gonna get surprised. No, it's something. It's always something that's bound to happen at least once.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, though, I think we have one of the cards that just seems to be a shot at constructed, and it's a rare. Of course. Yeah. So this is Orcish Bowmasters. For 1 and a black, you have a flash 1/1 Orc Archer. When Orcish Bowmasters enters the battlefield, and whenever an opponent draws a card, except for the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, Orcish Bowmasters deals 1 damage to any target, then amass Orcs 1.
I think this card is insane. I think this is on the low end, like on the extremely low end, this is a 2-mana 2/2 that pings on ETB.
Yeah.
And after that, it works as a stacks rare that any Legends Rider trigger, any Mishra Bubble trigger, literally any card your opponents draw, even a cantrip punishes them, because this is any card. It's not the first card its turn, like an Arset is. Yeah. It's the first card outside the draw step. So you cast and consider on the end step, I get a 1/1 and you get ping.
Yeah, this is the Notion Thief text. Yeah, I mean, it triggers off Mishra's Baubles. It triggers off
Little Shredder of countries.
Everything that draws a card other than your draw
trigger,
step.
Paladin ETB trigger. What I think this is insane is mostly in Legacy. Imagine your opponent casts a Brainstorm, you flash this in, and you get to hit them for 3 and get 2 mana 5/5 worth of stats.
Yeah.
And you bolt their face.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Time will tell if Modern is a format where this is playable. It is black, which is a bit of a donk against it. You can play this in Rakdos Scam, so I'm sure people will try it. Other than that, I don't think it has any natural homes, but there's definitely...
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe even Scam runs this. I'm not sure if this card I think is insane, like just as a card. No synergy is needed, no...
No, the Cabal Coffers deck will definitely be able to sideboard this at minimum, but like...
Yeah, as a cheap, efficient creature.
There's so many Ragavans and nonsense in the format that it's like, you could play some of these main deck, like, you're going to be fine.
Imagine going Darcy into your opponent making you play turn 1 Darcy, turn 2 Leicester Shredder, and response to your Surveil, opponent flash this in, get a 1/1, get a 2/2, kill your Darcy, and you concede.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of ways that this can go well for the person who plays the Bowmasters. So time will tell if the play patterns of it end up being fun. But it is nice. I enjoy having cards in the format that affect things like extra draws, because as of currently in Modern, there's basically nothing playable that makes your opponent think about when they're drawing cards other than, well, it's like we have like Legend Shredder, right? Where it creates this mini game where every time any player casts a second spell, it connives. And that's interesting from a game theory perspective, even though it's sometimes frustrating because of how good the Murktide deck is. Speaking of knights, we have a Westfold Rider here. It's 1 and a white for a 3/1 creature human knight, and it has the activated ability Sacrifice Westfold Rider, destroy target artifact or enchantment, activate only as a sorcery. We have a note here that says technically this is unique and best in class. There's a card called Cathar Commando, but Cathar Commando has a activation cost of 1, even though it has flash and it can be activated as an instant. So that's your tension, is do you want the 3/1 with flash that can activate as an instant, or do you want this 3/1 that activates as a sorcery but has no activation cost?
I think it depends on the shell you're playing it.
Right. If you're tutoring for it as a 1 of, and the reason you're playing it is to disenchant, then this is better.
Yeah, this is a 2-mana disenchant that works alongside Rallier or Imperial Recruiter. Sorry, the other Recruiter.
Recruiter of the Guard.
Recruiter of the Guard. And also works super well with like Broadback or Rallier in the fact you can just do it twice.
Yeah, or Eladamri's Call, or Traverse the Ulvenwald, because it just costs one less in total.
It's literally one less mana.
Right, and so there's a lot of reasons why you would want to do that. On the flip side, Cathar Commando is just kind of going to be a better sideboard card if you're going to play 2 or 3 or 4 of them. Especially because you're probably a white creature deck.
If you're not looking to tutor it, this is any other alternative is better. It's particularly the green one.
Right. Next up, we've got a Dan Shriver special. This is Council's Deliberation. If you want to take me through this card. Because it reads really badly, but...
So, Council's Deliberation, 2-mana instant, draw a card. Whenever you scry, if you control an island, you may exile it from your graveyard and draw a card. So this is the evolution of Think Twice.
Sure.
But your deck has to scry enough.
See, that's not the way I'm reading that. This is the reason why I called out Dan specifically on this one, is this is a card that you want to get in your graveyard without spending any mana, and then have cards that scry, be a deck with islands, and then get to draw a card for free. If you're ever paying mana for the front side of this card, you're doing it wrong. 2 mana for draw a card is not good enough.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't think this is a sort of... I think Consider is the last nail in this sort of deck.
Right. I mean, if you want to play this as a Think Twice replacement, then yeah, Blue-White Control is a fine place to do that because you play cards like Castle Vantress, right? So you have a way to scry every single game, so that even if this gets discarded or if it's a slow piece of card advantage, that you're going to get to draw the extra card. But I think the appeal of this card is put it in your graveyard for free, have things that scry, profit.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be the way it's just played in a unfair sort of way.
Yeah.
But sadly that doesn't tend to be my style, so I don't even consider it. I'm pondering what sort of... There has to be an unfair card that scries randomly, right? Like sometimes they just scry.
Yeah, I mean, there's Viscera Seer, right? Like that's a classic example of like a combo piece that scries and might be in some kind of weird graveyard combo deck where you want this in your graveyard to be activated. Like, do you remember in I think it's in Midnight Hunt or the other one of those sets, there's that like jack-o'-lantern that like from your graveyard you can exile it to make colored mana. This is that kind of card. Like you're gonna see this in a really weird combo deck that it's like, oh well, when you put these 3 copies in your graveyard, then while you're going through your deck you scry 1 and draw an extra card, and then that extra card you set it up to be this thing and then you win the game.
Yeah, that might just be the way, just draw a lot of cards all of a sudden and win that way.
Yeah.
So before that surprises us with a Council's Deliberation combo crabbind deck, we have Nasty N, which is like the Village Rights of this set. 2 mana as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, of course a colorless and a black. Draw 2 cards. If the legendary creature was legendary, draw 3 instead. I don't think this is good enough, sadly.
Yeah, if you sacrifice a legendary creature, you draw 3. I think that Deadly Dispute is just better and pretty much always is better.
Yeah.
It also has the optionality of sacrificing artifacts, which is great.
Yeah.
So we're getting up in the mana cost. We've gone through the 1s, 2s, and the mana, the lands. So we're going to hit the 3s when we get Boromir, Warden of the Tower. Who, if I'm reading him carefully, does not have a Tempted by the Ring trigger, which is a little weird for me, but all right. I feel like that's the most iconic part of that character, but maybe I'm wrong.
I'm just sad this isn't a 2 mana 2/2. This could just be a 2 mana 2/2.
Okay, so we've got a 3 mana 3/3, 2 and a white. Legendary creature Human Soldier with Vigilance. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. It also has Sacrifice Boromir, Warden of the Tower. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Oh, the ring tempts you. Yeah. There it is. I was hoping it was on here somewhere. In the end. So when he sacrifices, but that doesn't make any sense. Don't worry about it. Zach, shut up. You don't get Reckoner Bankbuster, Zach. Shut up.
You don't get more Reckoners.
So it's an interesting split of Selfless Spirit and Lavinia.
Yeah. This has to be a 2-drop. It might have been too powerful. Sadly, I think by the time the Lavinia text enters in Modern, it's too late.
Yeah, Lavinia as a 2-drop is frequently too late, right? And then also, it's a 2/2. It dies to a stiff breeze.
Yeah. This Tempting You is good. It has some additional upside in the Tempting deck if something pops out of there. It's a nice card. It's just not going to be Modern playable.
Yeah, I definitely have a sideways comment on that deck when we get up to the, I think, 4 drops.
Okay.
But next up, we have a card that I included, which is Rosie Cotton of South Lane. You want to take me through this one?
Oh, I love this card. Yeah, Rosie Cotton of South Lane, or better known as Samwise wife.
Yep.
She's a 3-mana 1/1, 2 and a white for a halfling peasant. When she enters the battlefield, you create a food token. However, whenever you create a token, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than Rosie. This, of course, goes immediately to the Scorioak combo.
Yeah, so my instinct is that this doesn't immediately go... No, it does. This goes infinite with Scorioak, right? As long as you get it going.
You could literally Coco into these and combo your opponent's end step. Because she makes the food that puts the first counter that gets us going.
Right. There we go. Okay, that would do it.
You could end-step Coco, hit these 2 creatures, and make infinite 1/1s immediately.
Right. This is a 1/1 as opposed to the other card that was part of Scorioak combo, which I think is a 1/2 or a 2/3.
Which is the other, but that's a 4-drop, right?
Yeah, but it's a 4-drop, so that's
I think
difference.
that's a huge difference.
This is, this you can hit this with a Coco. So, and then obviously it doesn't immediately go infinite with Benthic Biomancer, but
no.
There's a whole bunch of cards that this could combo with, so I thought it was worth pointing out.
So this combo wanted me to try something of... I know I'm just going too deep into the food deck, but I just love the food deck. It's like game objects / deck.
No, I get you.
And just playing this in like a Coco variant of that deck with Manufacturer, Samwise, Delighted Halfling, Coco, and these 2 cards, which both either make tokens or interact with tokens, and Chatterfang.
I think if you play Scorioak in the same deck, then you're talking. And that's a lot of 3-drops that are all good with Coco, right? Which is exactly the kind of deck you want to build.
Exactly. So maybe that's just the way to bring back Coco. You play Scorioak, you play Manufacturer, you play Samwise, you play Rosie Codon, and you just randomly combo your opponent. And if not, you're just gonna make a million game objects and see how that goes. This is the first time making so much food could actually be decent.
Right. And in this case, when you execute this combo, you also get infinite food?
No.
Oh, no. Yeah, she only does that. Yeah, okay. I see.
No, she gets it going on ETB.
Yeah, you get infinite squirrels and an infinite size Scorioak.
So we know Spike worked on this set as an advisor. And I think this is one of 2 changes he made to cards. And this is just me randomly guessing. But A, I'm going to guess he added the Mega Food trigger. And B, he nerfed Frodo.
The equip one?
So...
Oh, for sure. It's not on our list because I did a search for 2 mana and 3 mana equipment, and they're just not worth doing. For anyone who's curious, there's a 2 mana 2/2 Frodo that when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can equip an equipment that costs 2 or 3 to him for free. There's very few things that are worthwhile.
No, and more importantly, as long as it's your turn, you prevent all damage on it, so it would have been a 2 mana 2/2 that got a hammer on that was bolt proof and unholy hit proof.
100%.
So someone went ahead and said, no, this cannot say mana value 3 or less. This has to be mana value 2 or 3.
Right. But more to the point, there's just no equipment that's realistically worthwhile to have equipped for free. The closest thing is like Sunforger, but even that, like, there's a better card to combo with that, which is Javier Dominguez, the Fervent Champion. So it's not on our list for now. If you really want to see it later, then you can.
So I'm gonna add a card that I think Zach didn't see. At least I'm hopeful he didn't, because he's gonna love it.
Please.
So I'm gonna add it right now because it's a 3-drop and it works exactly into what we're talking about. Forge Anew. I'm gonna read it as I added. 3 mana enchantment, a white and 2 mana. When it enters the battlefield, return target equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. As long as it's your turn, you may activate equip abilities at any time you could cast an instant, and you may pay 0 rather than equip the cost of the first equip ability you cast during each of your turns.
Ooh.
Literally reanimate an equipment and activate it for free. Of course, first sight, people are gonna assume hammer, maybe it's hammer sideboard, because this reanimates a hammer and equip it, but also turn 2 Goblin Engineer, turn 3 this gets you a Caldra. Or also, any sort of shenanigans with the armor that gives plus, or with Argentum armor.
Yeah, obviously there's some cool stuff you can do with this. That's really interesting. And then, of course, as a hammer sideboard card against any red deck, the fact that your equipment becomes instant means that if you have the paladin, Pure Steel Paladin, then your creatures are immune to damage removal. There's no way you're ever going to be able to deal enough damage to kill anything.
Yeah.
That's cool. Thank you. Yeah, I hadn't seen that yet. There are a lot of spoilers coming out.
Yeah.
Rapidly.
I really like this card. This card is, I think, one that will see modern play. Not sure if it's its own bad combo deck or as a good card. Like, as a hammer sideboard card that just gets you a that just makes a paladin / Stoneforge Mystic roll on together.
Yeah. I just need to thank Wizards for eventually making the correct decision of banning Lurrus.
Oh, yes. This is like Lurrus, but with extra steps.
Yeah, but that's good. There should be extra steps, like drawing it and putting it in your deck.
And it not being a creature with lifelink.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah. So there are goblins in this set, Mord. Are you excited by the fact that there are goblins in this set?
There are no moderns. There are no goblins in this set. We have the Goblin Discord is in shambles. Why the freaking fuck the 2-mana 1/1 that amasses and everything is an orc and not a goblin? If that creature had been a goblin, oof. Even if it amassed orcs, I didn't care. Just being able to matron for it.
Yeah, understandable. I mean, I would assume that they did that very specifically for power level reasons. They specifically hosed you, so I don't know what to tell you.
It's tough.
Other than, yeah, it's just unfortunate that goblins is such a known tribe that they don't accidentally make playable goblins, but they do intentionally make playable goblins. So Modern Horizons 1 had a bunch of them. Hopefully Modern Horizons 3 maybe has a couple more when we get there.
Yeah, it doesn't happen on accident, right? It happens. They decide, okay, we're going to give you some.
Yeah. Just like fairies. We need a 1-mana flash fairy. A Spectral Sailor would have made a great fairy.
Oh, yeah.
But unfortunately, they wanted it to be a spirit. But we're getting off topic, and what we should be talking about here is Grishnakh, Brash Instigator. It's 2 and a red for a 1/1 legendary creature goblin soldier. When it enters the battlefield, amass orcs 2. When you do, until end of turn, gain control of target non-legendary creature and opponent controls with power less than or equal to the amassed army's power. Untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn. So you've got a 3-mana threaten. As base, you're threatening for 2, but if you have other amass cards, you can threaten for more.
And this is a 3-mana 3/3 that does that. That isn't bad if you have sack outlets. Like this.
Well, it's 3/3 in stats, right? It's a 1/1 and a 2/2.
That's even better than a 3/3 generally.
But you can recruit it for it.
You can recruit for it. I think this card is actually good, but you need to play it in a deck with enough sack outlets to just being able to sack the amass tokens that this sort of army is going to produce, being able to get rid of the creature you steal.
Yeah.
You have to get back on end step, so you better have something to do with it. This might work in a Goblin Bombardment sort of deck. I would love that.
You can flicker it for a lot of value.
Yeah.
A lot
of value.
A lot. Because then your amass token gets bigger, so you get another threaten, but the threaten you get is now bigger. If you play this in Ephemerate, you get 2. You get a threaten for 2 and a threaten for 4 immediately. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the card is good. I think it's a bit weak. It had to be like a bit more powerful in order to see modern play, but
yeah, I don't actually think it's good enough, but it's interesting. And a note that you cannot target one of your own creatures to just give it haste. Some threatened variants allow for that. This one does not. It only targets opponent's creatures and non-legendary.
And non-legendary. Yeah, that's a bit too many things against it.
It's a lot of riders. I'll give you that. Next up, we have a very, very medium card, so we'll just burn through this quickly. Swarming of Moria. It's 2 and a red for a sorcery, creates a treasure token, and amasses for orcs 2. It's just a lot of sort of chaff. Like, it's a lot of stuff for 3 mana and a sorcery. If you want to do some kind of creativity deck or something like that.
Yeah, it's 2 pieces of cardboard.
Yeah, and one of them is a treasure token, right? We know that has a lot of value in 1, being a piece of mana ramp, which is useful. 2, being an artifact token. And 3, being a non-creature token to target for creativity or other purposes. But you also get the orc token, so if you have a transmogrify or something like that, you can do that, or creativity for X2. Not as good as Fable, obviously.
Nothing is as good as Fable.
Right, but this is a sorcery, and it's a common, so. But we have a really cool card after that. That's why I saved this one for you. This is the Fires of Mount Doom.
Fires of Mount Doom, 2 and a red for a legendary enchantment. When it enters, it shocks a creature our opponent controls and destroys all equipment attached to that creature. That's a weird line of text in a 3-mana enchantment.
Which is so flavorful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so flavorful. It's so cool.
Especially because I think most iterations of Frodo we have seen are 2/2s, are also all golems we have seen die to 2 damage.
Right. So it kills the right creatures.
Additionally, for 3 man, it kills all the creatures it has and destroys all the rings it has too. Exile the top card of your library, you may play that card this turn. When you play a card this way, Fires of Mount Doom deals 2 damage to each player. So slow.
Yeah, it's weird too that it hits both players. Like, it's really I don't know about that. We have a note here that says this is very slow if we have some kind of Zerda effect going. So basically we're talking about reducing the cost of the activated ability to less than 3. Definitely. The fact that you can activate it as an instant is nice.
But it's only this
turn. But the fact that the activation cost is 3.
Yeah, and it's not even until your next turn.
No,
like
I mean, yeah, so you have to flip an instant, right?
Like most cards like that work like this right now have been like being changed towards until the end of your next turn.
Yeah. Or until the usually something a little bit more forgiving. Sometimes it's until your next turn, so you can play incidents on your opponent's turn. If you activate this at sorcery speed and you flip a bolt, you're allowed to cast that for the rest of your opponent's turn. So yeah, it's there was one from the most recent Zendikar set that has like landfall and does a similar thing.
And Balakut Exploration, I love that card.
It's mostly just a better version of this. But this does have the ETB, so at least it has a big upside in that when you play your 3-mana grinding enchantment, it does something. It affects the battlefield, and that is worthwhile, right?
Yeah. If only the activation cost was like 1 red mana, or even 2, or the enchantment was cost 2 mana, right? Like 2 mana shock is a lot more decent than 3 mana shock.
Yeah.
That's the most painful part. And next,
coming up, though, we got a flavor win, baby.
Yeah. Flavor win that I don't think is going to see much play, but someone is going to kill me with this soon, which is Nazgul. 2 and a black for a 3 mana 1/2 Wraith Knight with Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Whenever the ring tempts you, you put a 1/1 counter on each Wraith you control. A deck can have up to 9 cards named Nazgul.
I also want to point out that I read the creature type line and went, Wraith? Is that new? And then I just did the Scryfall search. It's not. There are 7 other Wraiths in all of Magic. So over 20,000 unique Magic cards, and there are 7 other Wraiths.
No, there's 5. 2 of those have Wraith in its... 3 of those have Wraith in its name. I just went down the same path.
Yeah.
And one of them is a Strip Wraith.
Sorry, for some reason I assumed that these had been errataed to have the Wraith creature type. Oh, no, they have. Odilic Wraith is now a Wraith.
Okay, so it's 5, because Wood Wraith Corruptor and Wood Wraith Strangler have not.
Wood Wraith Strangler is not one. Yeah. Okay, so there's 5 Wraiths in all of Magic, and 2 things with Wraith in the name.
And one of them is from Warhammer 40k.
Yes. 2
of them are from an unforgettable time of Magic. One is a 4-mana 3/3, and the other is a Wraith you're never gonna cast.
Right, Street Wraith. I never remembered seeing the creature type Wraith before. But this is neat. It's very much like the Seven Dwarves from Eldraine. It's a major flavor win and nothing.
All right, so we go turn 1 Changeling, turn 2 Changeling, turn 3, turn 3 Nazgul. We swing for 6 because we put a counter on each of them. And then we go into double Nazgul, swing for like 40.
Oh.
Because if you have 3 Nazguls in play, it's 3 Temptings, which is putting 3+1/+1 counter, so it's +9/+9 on each Changeling. So you swing for 6 +27 +7 from the new Nazgul. It's 40, exactly.
All right. Exactly 40. That's the right number to swing
on
for.
turn 4 if you only play 3 Nazguls. I think the card sucks. However...
Listen, why would you kill your opponent when you could overkill your opponent?
Yeah. I mean, only 1 Nazgul hit might be enough for lethal.
Right.
Because we're considering... there's also the fact that whenever a ring tempts you, you put a +1/+1 counter. So this enters the battlefield as a 3-mana choose 3 that puts a counter on every Wraith, right? That's the real text of this. It's bad, but it could be worse.
Yeah, yep. Also, this is maybe a good moment to re-look at the ring tempting you, right?
Yeah.
Because this is a creature.
So what did the ring tempting you read?
Right. So when the ring tempts you, you choose one of 4 abilities.
No, you don't choose. They go downwards and you start stacking them and it gets all of them.
Oh, it goes in order?
It goes in order and
so
it counts the one above as well. It gets all of them by the end.
Okay, so when you play this card, it becomes legendary.
Yep.
And cannot be blocked by creatures with greater power, right?
Yeah. When you play the second Nazgul...
When the second one comes in, the first one is now...
or you can change
whenever it attacks... Yeah, you could change it, but... So you can move the ring bearer. Yeah. In most cases, you're probably going to leave it on the first Nazgul if you have a second Nazgul coming in, so the first one can attack. And it gets the Looter Scooter ability. Whenever it attacks, draw a card, then discard. There's a third level, which is whenever your ring bearer becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller sacrifices it at end of combat. So it's like Ultra Death Touch. And then there's a fourth one where it's whenever it deals combat damage to a player, each opponent loses 3 life. So realistically, none of these are great abilities. Like Skulk. The second one seems like the best one, which is the Rummage.
I mean, having a Skulking Looter that hits for extra 3 damage seems irrelevant until it's not.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's something, but it's not much. So, and the game does remember how many times you've been tempted by the ring.
However, but that's what I was thinking, right? Like, in the first wave of spoilers, we got Frodo Baggins and Bilbo Retired Bagler, that if you go like turn 2 Frodo into turn 3 Bilbo, when Bilbo dies, you have already got tempted 4 times by turn 3.
Right.
And Bilbo... whenever it hits a player, you get a treasure token, so the Skulk ability actually becomes insane there. I just hope we get enough temptation triggers that there's actually a deck for it, like 5-color legendary temptation deck, because Gandalf also makes it whenever you get tempted, you draw a card, so if you go Gandalf into double Nazgul, you draw 2 cards, plus Bilbo, plus Frodo. I just hope there's something there.
Yeah, it is also going to be one of those things that's a little strange, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, once you've been tempted 4 times... then just anytime you're tempted, you hand the ring to a new creature and it gains 4 abilities?
Yeah, or you can keep it in the same if that's what you desire, but yeah, exactly.
Right. I'm saying you don't have to move it, but I'm just saying you will consistently have a creature with these 4 abilities. Okay. So, yeah, I don't think it's
definitely something that we have no idea how much it's worth. It's certainly worth more for an aggressive deck than anything else. Yeah, I think mostly the thing where they are going super deep is it's more important to get tempted than the temptation itself. Like, the tempting trigger is more powerful than the temptation provided by the ring. Temptation is more powerful than what you get, which is weird, but fitting somehow.
Yeah.
The ring. And then we have Build a Pony with a funny story by Zach.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I just had the experience of looking at this card and going, wow, Bill the Pony, creature type horse. That's ridiculous. This is one of those things that happens in Magic sometimes where there's something that isn't technically a different race or species or creature type, but they just go, well, it's close and we're not going to give it its own one.
It's close enough. Yeah, happened with dogs.
Right, exactly. For a long time, all dogs were labeled as hounds. And eventually they went, well, we have to fix this because all cats are cats, right? We didn't screw that one up. Except for some cats that are cat beasts. So I was like, oh, that's funny. And then I looked it up and I went, oh, ponies are horses. I didn't know that.
Ponies are actually horses.
So
tiny horses.
Yeah, fun animal species fact, whatever you want to call it. Because it's like it was one of those things where I just assumed it was a slightly distinctly different species. Much like, I don't know, like mountain lions and cougars and pumas and all those, they're like different, right? They're very similar, but they're different, right? So anyway, it's a 4-mana 1/4. It's a legendary creature horse. It's called Bill the Pony, and it has an adorable art. And when it enters the battlefield, you get 2 food tokens, and it has the ability to sacrifice a food token until end of turn. Target creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power.
So I think it's mostly on the ETB, right? Like, do we appreciate a 4-mana 1/4 that makes 2 pieces of food 2 pieces of card when it enters as playable? I don't know. I hope.
I don't think so. And the main restriction is one of the things you were talking about before is the food deck is already glutted up with a lot of 3-drops and also really wants to be a Coco deck. And the fact that this is a 4-drop just means you're not going to be able to play
If only he had been a 3-drop, I would have played Bill as a 3-drop. Like, exactly same card, 1 less mana was great.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is not for that. And that's fine. This is a card for limited.
Bye, Bill. We love you.
Yeah. And then we've got a very intense, very violent looking card here. Hew the Entwood. So for 3 red, you get a sorcery. Sacrifice any number of lands. Reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of lands sacrificed this way. Choose any number of artifact and or lands revealed this way. Put all non-land cards chosen this way onto the battlefield. Then put all lands chosen this way onto the battlefield tapped. Then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
So sacrifice X lands, look at X cards, put all artifacts and lands from there into play.
Right. The lands come in tapped, which if you have one or multiple Amulet of Vigors might be a whole thing. So this looks awful to me. I mean, I'm
not seeing the shell for it. I think I'm missing something. I look at this and I'm like, what am I missing?
I think the way to do this is to do something really degenerate with it, like have a bunch of Sundering Titans in your deck to flip into, because at no point here does it mention the cost. So this is 5 mana, cheat some giant chonky artifacts into play, is my impression of how this would be playable.
I mean, it's made on the fact that you are transforming the Ents, you're transforming your land into Isengard siege machinery.
Right, I understand that. Like, from a flavor standpoint, it's fine. But from a gameplay standpoint, I just think something like, well, the thing is, Glimpse of Tomorrow is the constructed playable version of this. Yeah. If you play the slot machine Glimpse deck where everything's huge, you just do this but better, because you can do it on turn 3 from any type of permanent. So you get more bites of the apple, and also they can be any permanent type, including Emrakul's, and that's
and better stuff.
Probably where you want to be. Right.
But before we leave this card, I want to go back to Long List of the Ents.
Sure.
Just because it reminded me of Tom Bombadil. You remember the Tom Bombadil spoiler?
I do.
So if you go turn 1, Long List of the Ents, when you play Tom Bombadil on turn 5, he will have Hexproof and Indestructible because you will have 4 more lore counters among sagas you control. Because this goes up to 6.
Right.
So in the saga deck, Long List of the Ents is particularly good because of exactly that.
Interesting.
I don't know if there's, that's maybe enough to just have it into consideration. Tom Bombadil's ability is super powerful, and whenever a saga dies, you get a new saga. So if you have any way to control trigger counters, maybe just making sure he enters the battlefield with both Hexproof and Indestructible is good enough.
It could be.
But yeah, just a reminder of that before we get down to our last 3 cards.
Yeah. The first of which I added is Gandalf the White, and it's because it reminds me of Elish Norn a little bit.
Elish, but flashy.
But flashy. So you want to take us through this guy? Because I think if this has any playability, I feel like you'd be the person who would tell me what it is.
I will look into it. So 3 and double white, we have Gandalf the White, a 4/5 legendary creature avatar wizard with flash. You may cast legendary spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. And if a legendary permanent or an artifact entering or leaving the battlefield causes a trigger ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So it's Elish Norn for legendaries and also leave the battlefield triggers and gives everything flash. It's a weird card.
Yeah, it's definitely it doesn't like it doesn't shut down your opponent's ETBs or permanents triggering, right? But having ETBs and death triggers or leaves the battlefield triggers on all of your legendary permanents, it's just something that is powerful enough that feels like something degenerate is going to happen with this at some point.
So how does this work with the Ugin crop?
Which one? The little tokens that Ugin makes?
No. The combo, the turns thing.
Or Ugin's Nexus?
Yeah. No,
let's find
if
out.
Ugin's Nexus already put into a graveyard from the battlefield, instead exiling and take an extra turn after this one.
Okay, so it's a replacement effect, so it never gets put into the battlefield, or put into the graveyard. But that's leaving the battlefield, which Gandalf copies.
All right, so you take 2 turns.
I believe you do.
Right.
Hold on. Ugin's Nexus. Let's read this carefully. So 5 mana. If Ugin's Nexus would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield, instead exile it and take an extra turn after this one. Yeah, so that would trigger twice.
All right. Maybe something.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the most powerful things you could do with it. And then if you have a Karn the Great Creator, you could wish for Ugin's Nexus again and again.
And just go super infinite.
So I'm glad that this 5 mana card plus another 5 mana card plus a 4 mana card could do something maybe powerful.
See? Super easy. I mean, I was looking for a payoff to playing mono white big man instead of mono black coffers. Might be tempted that way just because of this.
Right, because you could play a Karn engine with this and all those things.
Yeah, you're already playing the Karn engine.
Yeah, because for a long time, I mean, I don't know about a long time, but there was a while where there was a great mono white devotion deck in Pioneer that used the Heliod combo, but it also had Karn and Walking Ballista and that kind of stuff too. So yeah, we'll see if this can be anything.
So I'm annoyed by the fact that any single deck you're trying to play that's big man in Modern, Karn just tends to be the better pay if you're a monocolor. Like, there's no 4/5 mana spell, planeswalker, or creature that's better than Karn in any color.
I mean, that's... Yeah, but that's just a... Yeah. I mean, it's the cost of doing business when you want. I mean, Solitude is the best white removal spell. I mean...
Yeah, but Solitude is the best white removal spell, so if you're playing white, you play Solitude. But Karn is colorless.
No, I understand that, like, the fact that he's colorless, it's just one of those things of...
How is there not, like, a white, colorless card, or quadruple white card that's better than Karn? Or 4-color black, or 4-weight, or whatever?
Well, the trick is that there may be, but you need multiple payoffs. And then also, the thing about Karn is because he's a wish, he's universal. Yeah. I would actually push back and say that in any big mana deck that's playing red, you can play Wish instead, but it's good for the same reason Karn's good. Like, literally the same reason is that you just get access to 15 silver bullets or however much of your sideboard you want to dedicate to it. I mean, I think what you're saying is I can't believe the only Wish effect in Modern is the most playable big mana payoff, because there's very few other ones other than literal Wish. And that one can get literally any card. So, and it is playable in a smaller chunk of decks. But then the fact that Karn actually has good static text on the battlefield, I get it. But at the same time, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, even if I was in red, I would play Karn, because just having a free buy against Affinity and Harden Scales and a huge upside against Hammer is worth it.
Wish being able to get, like, lands and sweepers is a big deal. I've seen wish boards play some really gross cards. And when I say wish board, I mean
very specific.
Right, but like things like, I don't know, Fracturing Gust, right? Like Karn can't get anything that competes with Fracturing Gust in terms of power.
Okay.
But what he can get is mostly almost as good, and then the fact that he's got the body on top of it makes it more worthwhile. So, I mean, you're not wrong, but then best-in-class cards are just going to exist. There is a colorless best-in-class card.
I'm just sad it's a colorless best-in-class. I think that's the issue. Colorless should not have best-in-class.
Right. On the flip side, I'm just a person who enjoys a lot of the play patterns of Karn. So I'm someone who like I like that Karn is the consistent best payoff. It's nice.
I like Karn, especially without. I like Karn without the
Mycosynth Lattice.
Without Lattice, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I
like that the way you build Karn boards tends to be a little bit different for each deck. The cards that he's getting
are different.
There are there's like 3 to 5 staples, but
you have Sundering. No, not even Sundering, Liquid Metal.
Yeah, you always have liquid metal coating. Sundering Titan is mostly there. Walking Ballista is mostly there. Engineered Explosives or Ratchet Bomb is mostly there. But again, even with those cards,
Relic of Progenitus / the 0 mana one.
Right. But even with those cards, there's like a sub game of which ones you pick and why, right? So I don't know. Yes, it is one of those things that, Karn comes up a lot, but there's a lot of play to it. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of modern Horizon 2 cards that get played in Modern, but they create good play patterns. So it's okay.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like Karn. I like the play patterns of Karn. I just dislike Karn being colorless and the best payoff. It's just a color issue.
Yeah,
color
I get it.
Issue thing.
I get it. But I mean, the same kind of thing often happens with like, what's the best legendary creature to cheat into play? It's almost always Emrakul or Gristlebrand. That's just what it is. That's the rules of engagement. No matter what color you are, if you want to get the big thing is almost always the same.
Yeah.
So moving on to a very complicated card that doesn't seem anywhere near good enough. It's Aragorn the Uniter. So for a regular old Omnath mana cost of red, green, white, blue, you have a 5/5, so he's a little bit bigger. Legendary creature, human noble, with 5 different triggered abilities. Whenever you cast a white spell, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Whenever you cast a blue spell, scry 2. Whenever you cast a red spell, it deals 3 damage to target opponent. Whenever you cast a green spell, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn.
Yeah, I'm sad to say Aragorn.
I can't imagine any world where
I'm sad about that
to be played in a constructed format.
I'm sad about exactly that. It's so close. I think it's so close. I think it just needs even a bad ETB trigger was good enough. I think any sort of ETB trigger was good enough, and that's what hurts me. Literally anything was good enough.
Right, Scry 2.
Yeah, even. I think it just needed something to do when it entered the battlefield before it died, and that was good enough. Sadly, it didn't get it.
Yeah.
But...
yeah, it's a big flavor win. That's probably the best.
Yeah, it's a big flavor win. It's a great unifier. However, I added it up because I wanted to talk about the next card, which I think might actually see play, even if it sucks.
Yeah, and for a very interesting reason.
Yeah. So we have Sauron the Dark Lord, 6 mana 7/6 legendary creature avatar horror, which costs 3 and Grixis. So 6 mana total. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you amass Orcs 1, so you get a 1/1 or you grow your army. Whenever an army you control deals combat damage to a player, the ring tempts you. And whenever the ring tempts you, you may discard your hand if you draw 4 cards. More importantly, it has word sacrifice a legendary artifact or legendary creature. That means a lot of decks cannot kill Sauron.
Yeah, so that is a very specific investment that always costs a card and also costs tempo. Yeah. It's a really interesting application of the ward mechanic.
Exactly. This is the Lord of Rings set has been using this a lot. If I'm not mistaken, Saruman has a similar ward. Yeah, discard an enchantment, instant, or sorcery card.
Right.
So a lot of decks cannot even get rid of them. In this case, I think the ward trigger is powerful enough for this to just be a win con on its own. You play this and you win. the fact that whenever the ring tempts you, that if you're playing a ring that has a deck that has any sort of other temptation, allows you to super easily draw 4 cards, or just because of the fact that it's making it's making an army that when it connects, you are tempting it like just on itself, like it's sort of self-enabling.
Right.
Might just make this a win on its own.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. And then seeing a card that costs Grixis mana be powerful is always nice.
Oh, they just spoiled a new card, which I think it's at least worth talking with, is a 2-man enchantment. So 2-man enchantments.
Jam it in.
I'm just jamming it right now. It's March to the Black Gates. March from the Black Gate. 2-man enchantment. When it enters the battlefield and whenever an army you control attacks, amass 1. So it's a Bitter Blossom of this set, but without losing life.
Yeah.
And here comes my question. If I attack with 4 changelings, so I amass 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it doesn't say whenever 1 or more.
Yeah, it's whenever an army you control attacks, because it's just going to assume you have only 1 army.
Right. I mean, army, the amass mechanic is built so you never have more than 1 army.
Okay.
So, yeah, that is assuming that there are no printed army creatures. But you're right, changelings are armies.
Changelings are armies?
So,
just in case it's not like a super weird type that...
No, it's a creature type.
Okay.
It's just a creature type.
Okay, yeah, perfect then. Just a weird creature type that no creature has.
Yeah, it's there. I believe there's officially, it's like 400 and something creature types since the great creature type purge of 07.
Yeah, I just checked and you can carve souls for army.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah, and I just looked up list of creature types.
That's great.
Sorry, it's down to 281. There are only 281 creature types in Magic.
Really? I would have assumed a lot more.
Before the Great Purge, which was done before Lorwyn,
okay.
I want to say, there was, I want to say it was like 800. But there was stuff like there was elf and elves.
There was Lemur, right?
Like, Lemur, yeah, maybe. There was a lot of weird ones, which just made tribal things very silly sometimes. So I'm glad we're in the era where we are, where Dryad of the Elysian Groves gets errated to be a Dryad, because that's great.
That makes sense.
It should be that way. Yeah. So anyway, interesting to note.
With that being said, that's it for spoilers as of now. We're 100 cards in.
Well,
around.
I do want to. Yeah. I want to circle back on the One Ring, which I'm sure we talked about when it was like initially spoiled. And the only reason I want to mention it is that Aspiring Spike this week was talking about how he thinks this will make his 8-key Karn deck potentially a contender. So the reason why I'll get into in a second. So this is a 4-mana legendary artifact, indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring. And it has tap, no mana. Put a burden counter on the One Ring, then draw a card for each burden counter on the One Ring.
Yeah, this exponentializes stupidly with a key. You play this on turn 4, draw a card, untap, draw 2, untap with a key, draw 3, untap with a key, draw 4, up to 8 cards in a turn.
Right. So the specific interaction we're talking about is a deck that can untap this repeatedly, either with cards like Manifold Key and I forget what the other, a Voltaic Key, or by playing the card Paradox Engine and then just casting spells. If you have a Paradox Engine in play, obviously there's many ways to very quickly win the game. But the One Ring is one of the fastest because you tap to draw a card. If you have another spell, you tap to draw 2 cards. If you have a third spell, you tap to draw 3 cards. All of your permanents help you produce mana, and at this point, you are going off, and there is basically nothing your opponent can do to stop you.
The only thing that's... So the ring has a lot of things that just drive me crazy. The first paragraph is insane. You gain protection from everything, means it's a foil on itself. Like the turn you play, you're setting up to combo next turn, and you cannot die on that turn. That's insane. Right. It's indestructible.
And it's
so stuff like Force of Figure, which is amazing against that sort of deck, don't work. And the fact that the Burden Lose Life trigger is connected to the upkeep and not to the activated ability is insane.
Yeah. It's one of those things that when I read it, I thought it would be for every time you've been tempted, you lose 1 life when you activate it. but that is not at all what it does.
No, I was thinking about something like put a Warden control on the One Ring. Sorry, lose a life for every control lose a life for every Warden control on the One Ring. Then put a control on the One Ring and draw a card for each control on the One Ring. So it would be like the first time you activate it for 3 and draw 1. Next time you activate it, you draw 2, but you lose 1 life, and subsequently.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, and that's the way I would have thought, but nope, they actually printed it as a powerful card.
Yeah.
So
Spike might have his cake and eat it with this one.
Right. So we'll see. It's interesting to track a prediction from a sort of top competitive brewer. And it is interesting to note that unlike Boromir, this one really doesn't have a single thing that tempts you. It is amazing that the One Ring itself
doesn't tempt you at all.
Yeah. But you're right. We are at the end of what we have that was worth talking about for the moment. There are plenty of more spoilers to come. There are a lot of spoilers we didn't talk about, of course. So if you're in the Discord, or if you just listen to this and you want to let us know about your favorite card that we didn't talk about, there's a very good chance it's in the Commander set. And that's why we didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Because there is a corresponding Commander set that's coming out next to this release. So that's covered the major topic for today. I do want to circle back on a discussion topic that was brought to me specifically on the last time I was on. And I'm glad Mort is here to talk about it at the same time, because I was asked my opinion on March of the Machines Aftermath. And I have a very specific thing that I really want to say that I appreciate about March of the Machines Aftermath. These mini sets, while there is a lot to dislike about them, specifically, the fact that it's not intended or useful in any way for limited, is obviously something that's going to really, really choke putting the cards into people's hands. If packs aren't getting opened in limited, then there's a lot less packs getting opened. But one of the things I really like about a set like this is it's kind of like a little slice of like a Modern Horizons kind of set designed for a standard power level. And one of the things I really want to highlight here is 2 obvious things that are exactly what I'm talking about, which I wish could be part of normal Magic releases. And those are highlighted on cards like Nissa Resurgent Animist, that is seeing play in every format it's legal in, I believe, and Niv Mizzet Supreme.
Am I the only one that thinks Nissa is not good in Modern?
I don't think it's great, but that's not the point. The point is, it's at least reasonable. It's a card that a lot of people are playing. But here's the thing I want to talk about. Nissa has landfall. It literally says landfall on the card. Niv Mizzet Supreme has an ability that gives jumpstart. It literally says jumpstart on the card. This is not a thing they do in normal releases. That's one of the things that I think mini sets are going to be able to do in a way that I really like, is that they will be able to put cards into Standard and Pioneer specifically. This is not a big deal for Modern players. Some of these cards will be playable for Modern, but for Standard and Pioneer players, you get an injection of cards that are legal in your format, but didn't fit into the set.
Okay.
And that's really, really cool and exciting to me, because before, these kind of cards would either just be in the set and not make any sense, or they just wouldn't get printed, right?
I actually like Aftermath. I'm on you on this one. I just dislike how it was printed, and I think it would be great to have like a mini set after or before like the large transitions. I just dislike the 5-card booster for the same price and that shenanigans.
No, I get that. That sucks. I agree with you. It sucks. But at the same time, it's one of those things that I'm not a person who buys boosters. I'm just not. I'm not. I never will be. I do draft from time to time, but not frequently. And most commons are not playable. Commons exist for the large part to be part of limited. The common rarity almost exclusively exists for limited, and a large chunk of how uncommons are designed is to play in limited. I would say it's like 90 to 70 to 90% of Magic cards never get played in constructed formats.
Likely higher.
Those are just right. And that's the chunk of cards that is missing from this set. What you're left with is the sort of cream of the crop, interesting designs, impactful designs. And so I understand that, like, yes, we are being overwhelmed by product releases in a bit of a way. And yes, there have been a lot of like money grabs. And yes, there's things like secret layers where like 99% of the secret layers are not for you. They're not for me.
Yeah.
But when they do secret layers, like, oh, they do the old border secret layers. Those are
That is for me.
And those kick ass. Yeah. There's not enough of them. I want more. But, you know, Aftermath is cool. It has a lot of cards that maybe never would have seen the light of day if they hadn't made it.
Yeah, I agree.
And it would be too much to put these in the actual set, right? If these cards were just chunked into the actual March of the Machine sets, it would take away from what that set is and not add to it in enough of a way that made sense. So here's a small defense of mini sets if you care about any of the things that I just said.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the idea of mini sets. I have said this with Dan. I love the idea of mini sets. I agree with you. Mini sets are just straight into constructed. At least of the 50 cards, then you're like, this looks interesting, and the other are interesting but not powerful enough. So I hope they keep doing this. They don't get deterred by this as a way to keep like rotations not as heavily in time, but learn from the economical errors of their path.
I think if there's anything I know about Wizards, they won't do that. They will not learn any economic lessons.
No.
They'll just keep squeezing us as much as they can. But on the flip side, it is a way to release more cool cards, so we'll take that. So that's probably it for this episode of Faithless Brewing. Of course, as I mentioned before several times, you can always contact us through various social medias, especially our Twitter or the Discord if you like us. And until then, I will be doing some streams. I hope I see Mord streaming a little bit.
Yeah, I should be back soon. I have been overwhelmed with work, but I really want to go back to streaming now that I'm happy with 4-color mostly. I think a lot of people love to see that deck, and it was just gone.
Yeah, on my side, I'm preparing for a weekend where I'll hopefully get to play some Pioneer at the face-to-face tour weekend in Toronto. I have to do one of the last chance qualifiers on Friday in order to queue for the main event on Saturday. But I have a 5-0, 10-0 under my belt with Blue Red Chandra since the last episode I was on.
And that's all you need.
Yeah, probably. I mean, before one of my best tournaments ever with Mono Green, the literal best score I ever had with it was 3-2, but I knew it was a good deck, so I just took it in, and our team came in second place, and I did a lot of carrying, so trust yourself. If you think you found a good deck for a weekend and you want to play it, then do it. Get out there.
Get out there.
Make the thing happen.
Exactly. So thanks so much, everybody, for hearing us. Hope to hear back from you again. Zach, love to see you, but we're going to see each other in stream shortly, and if not, just in another episode. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining, and have a lovely day.
Support for this podcast is provided by brewers like you. If you enjoyed this program, you can join the Faithless family at patreon.com/faithlessbrewing. Your pledge goes directly to help us keep going with fresh brewing content and gives you access to our wonderful Discord community, plus bonus content, Faithless Brewing merchandise, and more. That's all for today. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.